The Gem State is changing every day, and as it does, the Idaho Matters podcast will help you know more about the changing communities and governments and cultures of Idaho. Listen to Idaho Matters today at boisestatepublicradio.org or in your favorite podcast app.
From Boise State Public Radio, this is The Connector. It's Idaho's daily news. Good morning. I'm George Prentice. Today we'll tell you about a really big Christmas tree that will be put in place in front of the Capitol today. The University of Idaho is talking about new housing for its students. And can you imagine the city of Boise hosting a World Cup team and its fans during the 2026 World Cup? It is Monday. Yes, Monday of Thanksgiving week. And here come today's stories. There are scores of events this week that will remind us that the holiday season is here. This morning, crews will be cutting down an evergreen in the 600 block of State Street. That tree will be prepped. There will be traffic flaggers. It won't be too much of a journey over to the State House. Indeed, it will become the Idaho Capitol's official Christmas tree this year. Crews from the Idaho Department of Lands and the State Transportation Department will be in charge today. Tomorrow, crews from the Department of Administration begin trimming the tree, and then we're expecting a lighting ceremony 1 week from tomorrow, Tuesday, December 3rd. Later this week, the nation's major retailers will lean heavily on what has become known as Black Friday. One estimate is that there could be as much as $10.8 billion in transactions online and in big box stores on Friday. But then there is Small Business Saturday, when local sales decide the fate of merchants that see themselves as much more than just retailers. As Sophia Blankensop reports, they see themselves first as our neighbors.
Small Business Saturday, a day marked to encourage consumers to spend at smaller, independent businesses during the holiday season, is set to take place on November 30th this year. Downtown Boise Association Program Manager Aidan David Carlson says local businesses in the Treasure Valley are gearing up for the day.
Boise has the highest concentration of locally owned businesses in the entire state of Idaho. So for us to be able to promote those local businesses is huge.
While Small Business Saturday highlights shopping local during the holiday season, business owners like Record Exchange co-owner and marketing director Chad Dryden say they really need year-round support for their continued success.
It's just imperative for us and anybody else who runs a small business for their customers to know that our dollars stay in the community.
For a complete list of participating retailers in Boise, go to boisestatepublicradio.org. Sophia Blankensop, Boise State Public Radio News.
Housing, affordable housing, or the lack thereof, continues to be a challenge for communities across the state. Cities like McCall. Here's McCall Councilman Lyle Nelson.
If you want to rent something, you can't. I can't get employees because there is no rental regardless of what I do pay them.
So a few communities, like McCall, have introduced so-called deed restrictions, incentivizing developers and homeowners to agree to affordable prices, specifically setting aside those units for local workers. And here's this exchange between housing consultant Adrian Quinn and McCall Mayor Bob Giles. She says there is a modest shift, but a shift nonetheless toward more long-term rentals and fewer short-term rentals like Airbnbs.
Is a long game and also is reducing the number of short-term rentals that you have.
Which is very important in our opinion, right? We've studied this quite a bit.
So in their first analysis, McCall, it turns out, has secured 16 deed-restricted housing units. More importantly, other developers have agreed to 45 soon-to-be-built units, and in a community like McCall, that would so far represent about 10% of all new housing permits that McCall has issued. Now up to the University of Idaho, where new housing is top of mind. The U of I will soon start initial work on replacing or renovating most of its on-campus housing. James Dawson reports.
Since 2019, enrollment at U of I has grown by nearly 14%, and freshman enrollment is up 42% in that same period. That's a problem since the school's housing is over capacity and many of the buildings are in disrepair. The upcoming project will replace the South Hill apartments and renovate dorms in Wallace and Theophilus Tower, which are nearly 60 years old. Brian Foisey is U of I's VP of Finance and Administration.
The Moscow community simply does not have sufficient resources to meet the housing needs of these students, and available housing on the university campus is inadequate and well beyond useful life.
The State Board of Education signed off on the nearly $163 million project Thursday. The full financing plan is expected to be voted on in the first half of 2025. Phase 1 renovations and new construction are expected to open by fall 2026, with the remaining renovations to be complete by fall 2027. James Dawson, Boise State Public Radio News.
Well, the holiday travel season has begun, and the AAA tells us that a record number of cars are expected on Idaho roadways. More than a few motorists might take note of a unique overpass east of Boise over Highway 21. And the Idaho Conservation League wants us to learn more about it in an event that reaches across the state in that it is virtual.
The webinar is really focusing on wildlife security and kind of the fragmented landscape that we see in Idaho, especially during winter wildlife migration season.
This is Lana Weber, Community Engagement Manager with the Idaho Conservation League. And indeed, the event will include engagement on that overpass, which allows thousands of deer and elk to cross over the state highway.
Those types of overpasses are put in place to reduce the number of collisions, sometimes by 80 to 90%. So really important, especially during winter wildlife migration season.
And the webinar is set for tomorrow at 6 p.m.
The registration is open on the website. It is a Zoom webinar. We do ask people to register and RSVP at that link, but you can find it on the website at idahoconservation.org.
Now to one of the planet's biggest sporting events, the World Cup coming to North America in the summer of 26, and the city of Boise could host a team and its fans as a base camp city. Troy Oppie tells us more.
2026 World Cup matches will be played in major cities in the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. Each qualifying team will play at least 3 times, with 4 to 5 days in between. FIFA, World Soccer's governing body, allows teams to pick a home base where they train and stay between matches. Boise is now among 49 potential base camp cities, one of 26 new locations added last week by FIFA. More potential locations could be added later, but just being on the list doesn't mean a city will get to host a team. Visit Boise's sports sales manager, Lucas Gebert, wrote by email that Boise applied to be on that list in August, proposing Boise State's Boa Soccer Complex as a training site. Gebert thinks Boise could be a great location because of its proximity to multiple World Cup match sites along the Pacific coast. Other regional options include Spokane, Colorado Springs, and a Salt Lake City suburb, but it will be a while before Boise knows if it gets picked as a base camp. Qualifying teams don't find out where they'll play until December next year. Troy Oppie, Boise State Public Radio News.
And that is today's episode of The Connector. What do you think? Lots of variety today. I'm George Prentice. We'll see you back here on Tuesday to stay in touch with the news between now and then. Check out BoiseStatePublicRadio.org or download the free Boise State Public Radio app. And could you please tell your friends about The Connector? And thanks for listening.
If you like podcasts like this, explore more from the Boise State Public Radio podcast family. There you'll find a mix of daily news, Idaho Voices, and in-depth series on a wide range of topics. I'm talking wild horses, political scandals, sustainable ranching, and militia groups in a post-January 6th world. Wherever you get your podcasts, just search Boise State Public Radio to find what Idaho's NPR station has in store for you.